Our next speaker for today, we have Anupama Rathi, AVP from Infosys Limited. Anupama carries 27 years of industry experience in strategizing, planning, delivery management, sales, and marketing. She has established large innovation practices and leads the DevOps practice at Infosys. Her topic for today is Next Gen DevOps for value stream benefits beyond just distributed technologies.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone who has joined this session. I'm Anupama Rathi. I'm Associate Vice President at Infosys, and I head DevOps practice for Infosys. I've been working in the industry for more than 27 years now. Today, I will be talking about next-gen DevOps, or as they call it, DevOps 2.0. Before going into the next-gen DevOps, let's see what we have achieved so far in DevOps in industry. I'm not going to talk about the outliers, whether somebody has achieved totally a no-touch automation or some companies may not have done any DevOps automation so far, but a generic view of what we are observing in the industry and what are the gaps in the current adoption first. So for most of the organizations, obviously know what is DevOps. There's a lot of awareness. They have done experimentation. Majority of them are excited with the results of DevOps. They have realized benefits like high reliability, good quality, higher speed, and in some cases, even cost benefits. And they have implemented DevOps for digital online portfolios, be it Java, .NET, or typical Angular, etc. technologies. Definitely DevOps has been implemented. So are we good at this? Yes. For distributed technologies, definitely a lot of DevOps has been done by various organizations and a lot of benefits have been realized. But can there be something more? Absolutely, yes, there can be something more done. So the more part we will discuss in next gen DevOps, but during the current adoption also, there are a lot of gaps which we have seen. The tooling space is good. Most of the companies have procured tools, either open source tools or they had COTS tools which were bought, and they know that they have to optimize the tools usage. So they have centrally installed tools. So tooling adoption is good. But there are gaps in the way DevOps CI/CD automation has been done. The first most important gap is CI/CD pipelines were created as individual pipelines. So probably in the CI space, they are good. The continuous integration server works with their unit test automation, code quality checks, repositories. The build is totally automated and integrated well. But not necessarily the same thing is integrated with CT. So CT is taken as continuous testing is mostly treated as test automation. And maybe the deployments are not integrated well, or maybe the triggers from CI to CT are not integrated well in the pipeline. So definitely we see gaps in what we could have achieved otherwise as a no-touch automation. Secondly, while there are a lot of tools, not necessarily tools are used in a proper fashion. So the results from tools should actually fail the pipeline if your build is of not a desired quality. But we see that these results are probably emailed, somebody looks at it, somebody doesn't. So the gating, which should be automated in these pipelines, where based on the result outcome, the build should be failed, is not always happening. In that case, it's actually a futile exercise to use the tools as well if your quality cannot be maintained in the build which is progressing through the pipeline. Then there are other gaps observed. The majority ones would be release management. It is still manual at many places. We see the release managers coordinating across teams to take care of the release, and especially the approval workflows which are required, your change control board workflows, those are still manual. So release is not getting automatically packaged and deployed definitely to higher environments and especially to production, which is a huge gap in DevOps adoption today. Lastly, infrastructure automation. We observe lot of infra provisioning is automated, but it is automated at the start of the life cycle. That means your infrastructure provisioning from your infrastructure teams to application teams is automated at the start of the life cycle. But if we talk about giving just in time infrastructure just before, for example, starting your test phases, and then cleaning up this infra and releasing it back to pool once your testing is done, that kind of automation is not widely in place in this current adoption. So there's still a lot of possibilities to improve within distributed technologies as well, by integrating the gating criteria with orchestrators like Jenkins, then automated failure of build pipelines with the gating criteria, fully integrating CI/CD pipelines, automating the release management, and all approval workflows to be fully automated within the pipeline. And lastly, the on-demand infrastructure capabilities to be used for all environments and on the fly. So yes, there is a lot to improve in the current adoption, but let's assume a case where for distributed technologies, we are already doing a fair job. And what next these organizations can do if they are doing a fair job in distributed technologies and have taken care of all the commonly observed gaps, which I said earlier. So if your digital online portfolios, which are having distributed technologies, are already DevOps enabled and already realizing benefits like speed, higher availability, higher quality, and obviously some part of cost saving because you are doing infra automation as well, then can we get more benefits? Yes, absolutely. We can get more benefits from DevOps. DevOps benefits can be multiplied n number of times if you are able to do DevOps beyond just distributed technologies. If you can focus at your DevOps for value stream level. And that is what we will call next gen DevOps. Just going beyond the obvious of distributed technologies DevOps to taking DevOps at a value stream level. So the entire business process or a value stream will have multiple systems which will support these digital online applications. So your backend systems, which are mainframes, larger databases, or CRM, these would be moving slow, on which your digital applications are dependent. So even if your digital application is ready for a feature delivery, you will still have to hold it unless all your backend systems are upgraded to provide the same feature. One simple example is, suppose you're planning to launch a new plan in the market. And for users to subscribe to that plan, you obviously have to upgrade your digital portfolios and put up a plan there for in your online sales portfolios. But if the order management, inventory systems are not upgraded to accommodate this feature, then you still can't release this new feature in market. So end business benefit which you are supposed to gain after putting this feature in the market, capturing the higher market revenue, will not happen even if your digital portfolios are doing DevOps. That is where if you are able to do DevOps for all these backend systems on which your digital applications are dependent, then your feature delivery can be really at a higher speed. And that is where we say that the DevOps benefits can be multifold in this scenario. So focusing on value stream is definitely important. And some of the components of value stream we are going to talk now, and how we can do DevOps for them in this next gen DevOps theme which we are talking. So the first one would be mainframe DevOps, legacy DevOps for legacy mainframe which can use DevOps. Earlier, it was thought that there are not many tools in the market to do mainframe DevOps, but yes, we have a good tooling landscape now. Be it IBM, be it Compuvare, you have a lot of tool options to do mainframe DevOps now. So the core legacy now can have test automation, deployment automation, the developer desktops are now available with mainframe DevOps, and it can behave as almost similar to your digital applications. The speed can be really improved almost up to 80 to 90% for mainframe DevOps as well. One of the common thoughts is, should I be doing mainframe DevOps or should I be modernizing mainframe? So suppose if you are modernizing mainframe as well, still there is a scope for DevOps. So let's take an example that you are going to a Micro Focus landscape and you're modernizing mainframe into Micro Focus. You can always do DevOps for these modernized mainframe in Micro Focus, and that will improve the speed of these modernized systems as well. So mainframe DevOps, be it your legacy or your modernized mainframe, you definitely have a scope of doing DevOps there and achieve the benefits similar to your digital applications. The next component in your value stream could be packages. The packages could be sometimes COTS packages, like domain packages. A lot of healthcare industry, if you have seen, they use a lot of domain packages in their IT landscape. These packages may or may not have their APIs exposed to do DevOps. So there will be interfaces built to talk to these packages, and we can definitely do DevOps for these interfaces. The second important part is deployment automation for these COTS packages. So moving from environment to environment can be automated for these COTS packages, and this will also bring a lot of benefits. We will talk in a short while about how these packages which do not expose APIs can also have a lot of DevOps benefits, can also derive a lot of DevOps benefits. So domain packages, yes, look at what we can do in terms of deployment automation or their interfaces which can be automated. In rare cases, there are packages for which source code is also available with organizations. Some of the very old traditional packages, especially when those were getting retired, the companies which retired the packages, they handed over the code to organizations. So when you have code available, then anyways, you can do complete end-to-end DevOps automation for such packages. The next variety of packages could be SaaS, something like Salesforce. Once again, a complete end-to-end DevOps automation is possible in Salesforce. You can use tools like Copado, which will give you a lot of steps to be integrated and automated. Or in fact, we can also use the disparate tool set, be it Jenkins, Bamboo-based, entire integration is possible with a lot of code quality and deployment tools, and Salesforce end-to-end DevOps is possible. But the context changes when you move to different packages. So in COTS, we said you can probably only focus on deployment automation. In Salesforce, while you can do end-to-end automation, you have to focus more on the orgs which are created in Salesforce and how those are structured, how those are used by teams, and especially version control becomes a difficult challenge if same org is used to update by testing teams and dev teams, etc. So the focus of your automation will change, but DevOps is definitely possible. So far we spoke about SaaS products, we spoke about some of the domain COTS products. Then there comes CRM. If you look at SAP world, yes, DevOps is possible. The tooling is improving day by day. The test automation was possible with ABAP. Solution manager was always there to help your deployment automation. The transport manager was there. Now Focus Build, which is in the market, that can help do the entire CI part very well for SAP. So CRMs are also not out of scope for DevOps now. So practically, we are talking about every possible package software in your organization which can do DevOps. Then there are other DPM tools and Pega of the world, where if you know, the latest versions of Pega support the inbuilt CI/CD features are available to support DevOps. So DevOps is possible for even these kind of tools. So when we spoke about these variety of packages, there are clearly two specific categories coming out of it. First one is where end-to-end DevOps is possible, like Salesforce. So all practices of DevOps are possible. When I say practices of DevOps, DevOps has been categorized into multiple practices. The buckets for these practices could be development, infra, testing, ops, etc. So the development practices could be continuous integration, code quality, static code quality checks, unit test automation, build automation. While when you move towards operations, it could be release automation, deployment automation. So there are around 25 plus practices which we name in DevOps. And for the first variety of packages can do entire end-to-end DevOps. As I said, example is Salesforce. But then there are second variety of packages. This is where some of these COTS and domain packages will come, where they don't expose APIs to do the entire engineering practices of DevOps. And that is where you will be limited in your DevOps capabilities while you are trying to advance in the DevOps journey. So either they're not exposing APIs, so you can't do DevOps. Sometimes the tools cost is very high, which limits your capabilities in doing entire DevOps. So that is observed typically in the mainframe DevOps case. Or the duration of the implementation for these tools could be longer. So when you move out of distributed technologies, it is not always that you will be finishing DevOps CI/CD implementation for an application within 2 to 4 weeks, the way you do for distributed technologies. So the duration could be much, much higher. In that case, what we suggest is you go with practice-based DevOps approach. So what is practice-based DevOps approach? As I said, there are 25 plus DevOps practices which are bucketed by our typical functions, dev, test, etc. What we need to do is do a time motion study of the application and see where is a bottleneck. Where are you spending maximum time in doing one of these practices? And many a times, the most favorite one, which is found by everybody, is release management or deployment automation. That is where the maximum time is spent. So you can focus on doing automation only for that practice. Forget doing it end to end. Don't think of doing continuous integration, continuous testing, and continuous delivery. Just focus on a particular practice and automate that. You might find that 80% of the DevOps benefits which you had thought of achieving can be achieved by just fixing this automation for only one of the practice. Typical Pareto's rule. So you think about removing the bottlenecks. Don't worry about end-to-end DevOps, and you still may get a lot of benefits. So this conversation is very specific to mainframe and packages. It can also give you a way forward, a roadmap for how do you do DevOps for these systems. Should I start with CI or CT? That's a typical, very favorite question. When you do time motion study, it will point you to the bottleneck which is hitting you most, and you can start with that automation first. It will also help fixing the appetite, how much automation you can do for these systems, and what do you want to let go, what do you want to completely do. So some packages, as I said, like Salesforce, you can do end-to-end very easily. Some packages might take longer time, so you can use practices-based DevOps approach for them. So we spoke about in the value stream, first set of systems beyond distributed technologies is the packages which we spoke about, which needs to be also enabled with DevOps. The next important topic in next-gen DevOps is DevSecOps. So security testing, we all know it took a long time towards the end of the cycle. Security testing is not done by the application teams. You have separate security testing experts, security SMEs in the organization. That group is a small group, and you have to put a request to them that my release is coming up, and then they give you a time duration 1 week, 2 weeks, sometimes even 4 weeks for security testing. So it's a huge delay when you look at the hurry in which application teams and DevOps teams are trying to deliver. So, automating security testing to reduce this time lag introduced at the end of the life cycle is definitely going to be beneficial in your DevOps journey. But how do we achieve it? And is it like as simple as the rest of the DevOps? Can I just get a bunch of tools and integrate them in the DevOps pipeline? Or do I need to have more considerations when I'm doing DevSecOps? Definitely, there are more considerations when you're trying to do DevSecOps. So now that more and more teams are working in Agile and DevOps way, they are releasing faster. And that is where security testing teams are getting burdened with a lot of frequent releases. They don't have so much bandwidth because they are a smaller group in the organization. They cannot take hundreds of releases coming from so many agile teams every week and do security testing for them. So best approach is, yes, you go ahead and get tools. And tools for security testing are also spread across the entire life cycle. So you have static security testing, SaaS tools, then you have software composition analysis for your open source, so SCA tools, dynamic testing, DAST, then you have IAST, then you have RASP for runtime testing, and obviously container security, because nowadays we are doing a lot of container work. So all these tools, yes, you can get these tools. It is easy to integrate them in pipeline because most of the tools nowadays expose the APIs. So it is, and they also have a lot of ready-made plugins with some of your orchestrators. So it is possible to integrate these tools. So then where is the problem in doing DevSecOps? The most important challenge in DevSecOps is when you're looking at doing it for your existing applications. When you will run these security testing tools for the first time, you will be surprised, not hundreds, but thousands of security defects will come up. So if you are putting these tools in the CI/CD pipeline and you're going to fail the build when there are certain severity security defects, then practically you will find that your build will never progress. At the first tool itself will show thousands of defects and your build will never progress. So we need to have different strategies while adopting DevSecOps. It is not just doing CI/CD integration. Firstly, when you get these thousands of defects, there would be a lot of false positives. False positives are the errors which are really not the errors. Technically, those could be, but those are not the threats for securing your application. Sometimes just because the rules are written in a certain fashion, they capture those as defects. So out of 1,000, you may find that 700, 800 are false positives. So your first round is going to go through finding out which are the false positives and I can ignore them. And then remaining defects are really the defects which you have to fix. So you take it back to developers, they need to fix it. And that's going to be the first round of your security testing. So obviously you can't put it initially as part of your CI/CD pipelines. You will have to fix these defects, mark false positives. So your tools which you are using should have a facility to mark false positives. And these tools should be capable of ignoring these false positives in the next run. If every run I get those similar 700 false positive errors, then you can't, there's no use of using these tools because you're going to spend enormous amount of time in figuring out these false positives again and again. So if the tool has a facility to mark false positives and ignore them in the next scan, that is the best option for you. So initially, for such existing applications, you should run these security testing tools outside your CI/CD pipeline Try to fix these defects, try to mark false positives, run a few iterations, and then bring these tools as part of your pipeline so that you will be not failing the build every time. At least your build can progress to the next stage from, say, SaaS to SCA at least. The second challenge you will face is for your code base, there could be a longer cycle of running the scan. And if you are in a habit of running your pipeline on every commit, then it's not going to be possible to run these scans unless the tool has incremental scanning capability. That is a very important feature you will look for in your security testing tools if you're trying to do DevSecOps, because with incremental scanning, you will be definitely reducing the time required for running the scan. So looking for features like incremental scanning and reducing the false positive or marking the false positives are some of the important aspects. Along with that, obviously, there'll be many other criteria like the technology supported by these tools and integration supported by these tools, etc., etc. So this 2 to 4 weeks of delay, which we were talking about for doing the security testing, can be reduced drastically once your application has run through multiple cycles of security scans, and these security tools are part of your pipeline. So security shift left definitely possible with all these tools. And as I said, if we take care of these aspects of false positives, then it is possible to use it in CI/CD pipelines. But there is another problem, which is about people and process transformation, which is very important for DevSecOps to be successful. Whose responsibility is security? Is it only the security SMEs, because they own and sign on it? Or now we are going to make developers also responsible? How are we going to make developers responsible for security if finally the sign-off comes from security SMEs? So there are a lot of questions which need to be solved when you're doing DevSecOps. You need to change the process such that security becomes a requirement. Maybe not, yes, non-functional requirement, but developers need to be noticing that requirement, working towards it. They need to be using best practices for secure coding, and they need to be enabled on security practices if they are not aware about it. On the other hand, security SMEs also, while they own the security work, they should also be looking at how to accept the scan reports from these SAST and SCA tools which are executed by developers, so that they don't repeat all of these tests again for once the release is ready. So the ultimate aim of reducing the cycle time should be also accepted by security SMEs, and they should look at the earlier scan reports and try to approve the security requirements as and when the release comes up. So it will need a lot of collaboration between security SMEs and developers for a successful DevSecOps implementation. So far we saw two important topics for next-gen DevOps. First was packages DevOps, second was DevSecOps. Third comes, which is the most favorite in the market right now, is cloud DevOps. Now in cloud DevOps, we know many organizations are now trying to do a large-scale cloud migration for their applications, be it rehost, replatform, or building new cloud-native applications. So in all these scenarios, we also need to think of DevOps, and this is a right time for any organization to think of their DevOps strategy again. Because traditionally, when they were on-prem, probably it started with organic adoption, some applications doing it, then more applications doing it. But now that we are doing a proper structured cloud migration, we also need to think about DevOps strategies once these applications are moving to cloud. And not only once these move to cloud, before moving to cloud, what can these applications do so that the DevOps adoption on cloud would be easier? There are many questions to answer, and whether organization has a multi-cloud strategy or they're focusing on a single cloud, whether they need to, are they going to build a separate DevOps solution for cloud and for separate solution for the applications which are still going to remain on premise. Then for cloud DevOps solution, should we leverage cloud native DevOps services like Azure DevOps or AWS Cold Build, etc.? Or should we be using similar kind of tool stack which we use on-prem, which is comprising of open source tools and COTS tools, Jenkins of the world? So what should be the right strategy? Should it be cloud native DevOps services, or should it be using tools separately? The third important question is, if it is multi-cloud strategy, should I be building every cloud specific DevOps solution, or should I build a cloud agnostic solution? So there needs to be a lot of thought given, and then DevOps need to be adopted for cloud. You can always go either ways based on cost benefits, what you are looking for, and the size of the portfolio, how many applications you're moving to cloud. Based on that, your decisions will change. You can always go ahead and do DevOps using cloud native services, as I said, GCP, Cloud Build, AWS Code Build, Azure DevOps, or you can do a cloud agnostic DevOps using Terraform of the world. You can do cloud independent DevOps using Jenkins and Bamboo, etc. Or even you can move towards DevOps using PaaS platforms like OpenShift. So there are a lot of options, but it needs to be strategically thought over before you start the cloud adoption journey. Because if you take a wrong decision, for example, you have thousands of applications moving. If you have not planned a good reuse, you might end up spending a lot in terms of your services cost or even your infrastructure cost, even though you're moving to cloud. So it's very important to think about the cloud DevOps strategy. And we will look at it in some time again when we talk about enterprise DevOps. So when we spoke about cloud, DevSecOps, packages, distributed technologies, DevOps, finally, the aim is to do DevOps for the entire enterprise. Because now we know there are benefits in DevOps and everybody wants to scale their DevOps adoption. So when organizations are trying to scale at enterprise level, they are having some baggage with them. The original DevOps adoption started with some pilots, organic growth of DevOps in the company. Every line of business had separate choice of tools. Forget that. Originally, they had separate technologies. One line of business is dominated with Java, other is with .NET. So that also contributed to having separate choice of tools for their DevOps. And the DevOps strategies are also different. When we observe some organizations, some of the portfolios will have a DevOps platform. Some are doing CI/CD for every individual application. So traditionally, they are carrying this baggage of varied tools, separate strategies for DevOps. And even if sometimes the tools are same in the enterprise, and enterprise are decided, say Jenkins is the way to go forward, and they have set up a central Jenkins enterprise server as well. But still, you will find that the adoption at application levels is different. All applications are doing DevOps as per their capability. Either they are doing end-to-end DevOps, or they have done DevOps wrongly. They don't have gating. Their pipelines are really not no-touch pipelines, and they don't even know that they're not doing it correctly because they're struggling with it. Not every application team will be expert in doing CI/CD. So every team is then trying to add a CI/CD engineer. So with all these complications, where are these organizations leading to? These organizations are leading in few years. These are leading to a very high cost of DevOps because there's duplicate tooling, and the infrastructure for these toolings is growing day by day. then there is a very high maintenance cost and effort for maintaining these tools as well as the CI/CD pipelines. Because once you have created a pipeline for an application, you're still going to need some maintenance on top of it. So you are going to have a lot of CI/CD engineers, release managers sitting around and maintaining DevOps for your applications. And if you imagine a global 2000 company, which would typically have at least 1,000, 1,500 applications, then this cost and effort for CI/CD maintenance is going to go through roof in few years. Lastly, in spite of doing DevOps, these organizations are not going to get all the benefits which they thought of while adopting DevOps, while implementing DevOps, because obviously the previous reasons which I said, the higher maintenance cost and the cost of toolings, etc. So this is where organizations will go to if they do not have a very planned DevOps strategy. So the solution is rethink of your DevOps strategy, and that is where my earlier topic of cloud adoption comes into picture. If your cloud adoption is going to start, along with that, if you think your enterprise DevOps strategy, and you can do an entire course correction to your DevOps strategy in the company at this moment. So what should any organization think of when they are trying to do a course correction in their DevOps strategy? Firstly, cost of tools and the infrastructure required for tools. So as much as possible, try to have a unified set of tools. What we call it as one tool for one purpose. So for static code analysis, if you decide, say, Sonara as a tool, then all the applications in the company should use Sonara as a tool. So one tool for one purpose. Then next is the effort for implementing CI/CD. That is where they need to focus. That now when we are doing course correction, we should create such solutions that CI/CD implementation per application should not be very effort intensive. It could be something like an easy onboarding portal or some kind of a platform which can help easily create DevOps pipelines for these teams. And teams need not, these application teams need not spend time in actually doing this CI/CD implementation. The third focus area should be uniform DevOps practices as much as possible. Yes, we know it is not possible that every application can adopt similar DevOps practices, but as much as possible, there should be uniformity. So when we say practices, yes, version control can be a uniform practice. It should be mandated across. Static code analysis can be uniform practice. Unit test automation, probably not uniform, because if you are carrying a lot of legacy code in the application, you may not go towards doing unit test automation for these applications. Spending months and months to do the unit test automation for legacy code will not be so feasible. So the third point which we said is uniform DevOps practices as much as possible. The fourth focus area should be maintainability of CI/CD. How much effort I'm going to spend to maintain CI/CD across the enterprise. If there is one tool upgrade and I have to go and do that change for all the thousands and thousands of CI/CD pipelines in the organization, you have probably created a solution which is not easily maintainable. And lastly, a futuristic solution which will take care of growth of this company and their cloud adoption journey, etc. So these are some 5 considerations which one should look at when they're doing enterprise scaling of DevOps in this next-gen DevOps journey. We said cost of tools, infrastructure for tools, effort required for CI/CD implementation, uniformity of DevOps practices, maintainability of CI/CD, and a futuristic solution. So when we have focus on these, many a times you will see that all the previous themes which I spoke about will start collapsing into one to create this futuristic solution. So organizations will look at merging their cloud adoption strategies and DevOps strategies in a single picture. They will adopt DevSecOps and value stream level DevOps because the benefits need to be end-to-end and at the value stream. They will look at newer trends like NetOps, MLOps, DataOps, etc. And the futuristic solution may end towards a single unified solution, something like a DevOps platform. Not necessary, but just an example, it can become a platform which is cloud agnostic, which is scalable, and which can service multiple clouds and on-prem applications as well. So imagine a solution which can give you a support to all kinds of applications and all possible technologies or majority technologies which this organization is using. So if there is a single DevOps platform which can support Java also, .NET also, Salesforce also, Python also, then that would be a fantastic solution. And most importantly, this solution needs to be configurable because we know all applications cannot adopt end-to-end DevOps. So if the solution is configurable for every application, where they can skip some of the stages, and once they're ready, these applications can adopt those missing stages at some later point of time, that is probably a very futuristic solution which organizations can look at when they are trying to scale at enterprise level. So re-strategizing DevOps for enterprise scaling is definitely what you can call as next-gen DevOps. Take a pause, analyze your current state, and look at the futuristic solution. So we spoke a lot about CI/CD automation so far. In next-gen DevOps, we spoke about DevSecOps, cloud, packages, mainframe legacy, and enterprise scaling. But in next-gen DevOps, people transformation is also going to be very important for us. The original concept of DevOps actually started from people transformation. It was about Dev and Ops working together and doing a faster delivery of the releases. But somewhere it went on to back burner, and CI/CD automation took a forefront for last many years. But now that CI/CD automation is done and there are faster releases happening, we are trying to put a release in production every week or every 2 weeks. It is now pressurizing our ops teams because knowledge transfer to ops teams cannot be done at this pace. And that is where your support SLAs are getting challenged when you are putting so much code in production. And hence forming unified DevOps team is definitely a requirement in this second phase of DevOps. So unified teams will not only be able to support the applications better, not only give better SLAs, but these teams will be highly productive. They can fluidly work between newer requirements and supporting the production sites, and business outcomes will be a better focus for them and not only IT outcomes. So these teams are now going to be very aligned to business and will be very fluid in what they deliver to business. So definitely unified DevOps teams is one part of people transformation. The other part is SREs, the site reliability engineers. While yes, there are ops guys who are trying to fix the production defects, but availability of the site is becoming so critical. Your end users of the site will be more loyal to you. You will be able to retain your end users if your site availability is higher, which is the highest business benefit probably we can give to business as an IT team. So site reliability engineers is definitely what you're going to need in future, and you can focus that in next-gen DevOps. The CI/CD automation will help us code faster with a higher quality and give it to production. On the other hand, SRE teams will always be able to go to a root level and fix any defects, not just do some patchwork of fixing production defects, but fix these issues at the root level to see that the site is always available. So building unified DevOps teams, building SRE teams is going to be our focus area in next-gen DevOps. So today we spoke a lot about next-gen DevOps, be it focusing on value stream level, ensuring CI/CD automation is done for packages, mainframes, CRMs, cloud, ensuring that your cloud strategies and enterprise scaling strategies are aligned, adding security as part of DevOps. And lastly, we also spoke about people transformation in terms of unified DevOps teams and SREs. So it's going to be a great journey ahead. We have done great work towards distributed technologies, and there's a lot to capture when we are looking at enterprise scaling of DevOps. I wish you all the best for your journey into this next-gen DevOps, and thank you for joining this session today.